high atop the world headquarters of Southeastern Fly. This is the Southeastern Fly podcast. Thanks for pushing play. Click the like, hit the follow. Here we go. For those of you who may not have heard the podcast or are newer, I'm David Perry, owner of Southeastern Fly. We're a guided drift boat fishing company on the Elk River in Tennessee, the Caney Fork, the Stones River. We do muskie trout, smallie trips. You can look for us and book us on southeasternfly.com. Also, I'm the host of the Southeastern Fly podcast. Welcome aboard. We have about 100 episodes, and we work hard to improve your angling skills. So hopefully you get something out of this as you listen through these different episodes that we have out there. We have a lot of great guests once a month, and then I just get on here and talk about a subject that either somebody's asked a question about or has come to mind, or something that I'm working on currently, because everybody needs to work on their skills to get better at their craft. So we've got a newsletter that kind of gives you an idea of what's going on with the podcast, gives you a heads up on what's coming, some info on some past episodes, plus some things that I've written for other people and myself that'll kind of help improve, hopefully, some of your fishing. So there's a lot of different things that we do on there on the newsletter. It's on the app that you listen to on podcasts, that you get your podcast from. It's in the show notes. So when you click on the app to listen to the podcast, if you just scroll down there, once you get to Southeastern Fly, the episode, just scroll down a little bit. There'll be a link right there on this episode, actually. And you can sign up for the newsletter. Just stick your email in there. Comes in your box about 2 or 3 times a month, and just gives you an idea of what we're doing. So today, we're going to talk about fly fishing this spring that's coming up. And I'll tell you this, everybody's a great guide in May. I mean, it just seems like that the fishing turns on, the fish are hungry, they've made it through winter, they're all celebrating and stuff. And it doesn't matter what kind of fish that you're fishing for down here in the South, it just seems to come to life in May. I don't know who wrote that, probably somebody just like me that's a little sarcastic. But anyway, here we go. Let's all get better at fishing this spring. So let's talk about your cast. This is the first tip. Let's talk about your cast, or maybe in some cases your absence of cast. So what do we need to do to improve that for spring? Practice. Now I know what you're saying. You're saying, I don't need no stinking practice. Well, we all need some of it, since most of us haven't cast in a while. So to be a better angler in April and May, you need to spend some time in the yard practicing your casting in March and April. That's about it. A good routine for me is I like to get the rod out, string it up, put a leader on it, put a little bit of, I usually use just a tad bit of yarn and not much, because it'll get hung up in the grass and stuff in the yard, especially if it's not cut the way it should be. Guilty as charged. But a good routine for me is string that line on that rod, keep it strung up as long as, put it in the garage or wherever. Keep it so that's one step that you don't have to do every time that you get ready to cast. I like to go out in the yard. We've got a fence down the side. I like to do my hero cast down there. So that fence is about the length of a fly line, of a roll of fly line. So I like to do a couple hero casts, get that out of the way. I'm not going to present the fly that way, but anyway, I just like to do it. What the heck? It's a good measure for distance. I hit a good one, the crowd goes wild. Actually, it's the dogs barking in the backyard. But anyway, no crowd there. But it does feel good. It feels good to send it a few times before you buckle down and get down to the cast that really means something on the water. After my hero cast, it's time to get down to business then. I do some roll casts, get the old shoulders loosened up, find out where the pains are from rowing again, and how those two seem to not mesh very well. But buckle down and get some casts in. I mean, that means something on the water. What I mean by that is something that you're going to use day in, day out, multiple times when you're on the water. So do some roll casts, pick a target for them. Yep, I set up a target. And I think you need to as well. I used to just cast it like a blank spot in the lawn and then pick another one and do that. But setting targets is more like targeting the fish, targeting the spot where the fish might be. So do that. So I set that up, roll cast it a few times. Then I'll pick another target or set another target up. Put this one out about 20 to 30 feet. 2 to 3 rod lengths is about 20 to 30 feet. So nothing, I don't get out the tape measure. That's a lot of time wasted. Spend some time hitting that target. Add some roll casts back into your routine. I like to go back and hit those roll casts whenever I miss that target at 20 or 30 feet. I go back and start over and go back and start over and just keep going back and forth that way because I'm going to miss. I know I'm going to miss. You're probably going to miss too. Not a big deal. And I've said this a million times. Film yourself, set your camera up so you can just watch a little bit of it. You don't have to show it around. You don't have to put it on social media. This is for you only. But anyway, add some more roll casts, some longer casts, make a game of it. If you miss your 20, 30 foot, go back, hit that roll cast target. It's also a good time to start hitting on a new cast that maybe you've been wanting to try. Like a single haul is a good way to start. You know, if you're not single hauling, teach yourself to single haul on that target, or get with somebody that can teach you. It doesn't have to be me. I'm not hawking for casting lessons or anything like that. Find somebody, a friend that really is good at casting, or go to the fly shop. There's a ton of people out there. You can find them in your area that'll help you cast. Do that single haul, work on that double haul. You might set that target up another target a little further out. Maybe this one's 40 feet out. And then just keep going at your game. Spend 20 or 30 minutes rotating through those three or four targets that you got. Do that a few times a week. Leave that rod to put together if you can. That's key for me. The less I have to do to get out there, the better off it is for me. I'm not real good about going through a whole bunch of steps to do something, especially if I can have one or two of them done. If you can leave the targets out there, leave the targets out there. If you can't, if your wife's going to get onto you, or your better half, I suggest taking the targets up. Don't get into that because that'll be another deterrent for you to go out there and do it. But like I said, I add a small piece of yarn on the end of my leader because that represents mostly what we're going to see on the water. Do it next week, do it this week, next week, and then do it even the next week too. So yeah, you want to get out there and do that. So that's tip number one. That's going to make you better on the water. Tip number two, this one's very important. A weather app. Get a good weather app. Man, springtime, the weather changes on a dime. It's crazy how much it changes, but the warmer days and not so cold evenings are welcome for me. But your weather app, it can be your best friend. Use it wisely, learn it, look at it even when you're not fishing. That way you can kind of get in your mind, okay, it's hitting pretty close, or this thing I need to throw this away, you get another one. You want to be ready when it's time to go up. In May, and we're talking mostly about spring, so let's just talk April and May, but it's been probably, I think it's been 10 years ago, so it's probably been 12. But I was on the river. Some of y'all have heard me talk about this particular day before. It's one I won't forget. On the river with some clients, with two good clients, older gentlemen, they're a little bit older than me, and I know some of y'all are thinking, wow, is that even possible? Well, yeah, it is. But a couple of older gentlemen, we're floating down the river, and a storm is basically chasing us to the ramp. Is really what's happening, or to a place that we can get away and get in some cover. And so every turn that we take, we seem to be keeping this storm behind us. So we're zigging and zagging, and fishing and making time and fishing and making time. And we all knew we were going to get off the river a little bit early, but like everybody, we like to stay as long as we could. So anyway, as all rivers do, this one turned, we zigged, the storm zagged, and bang, it was catching us. I knew we were caught. I didn't realize how bad it was going to be. We passed the cabin, the folks in the cabin that live in the cabin or stay in the cabin. They were on the porch watching the storm, of course. And the lady said, "Hey, you want to come up here and wait out this storm with us?" And I said, "Nah, no, it'll be fine. I think it's going to pass us here pretty quick." And she did laugh a little bit and then said, "Okay." And then I said, "Hey, see y'all later." So we went on. We went about, I don't know, maybe the length of a football field, maybe a little more than that. It's not, we didn't go far. I mean, we could still hear them talking. And that's when the rain came. And it Forrest Gump rained. It rained sideways. We turned our backs. It rained down. We put our heads down. It started bouncing off the boat. You didn't really have anywhere to go. But that lasted for 30 minutes or so. And then it finally began to lighten up. And we bailed the boat out. We made it another 150 yards downstream, not too awful far. And the rain came back. And I was like, okay, well, we can survive this. And what was happening was this storm was building over this hill. And it was just peeking over this hill. Well, when it came, it was dark. And then it started hailing. So we were hunkered down in the boat, and I said, "All right, guys, get out and get under, one of these smaller trees." And the hail came. It beat the boat. It beat it. It was like being out west. It's like being in Colorado in the hailstorms. What it's like. Not huge chunks of ice, but pretty big enough that it hurt. So anyway, I finally that got through and went over us and bailed the boat out a second time, jumped back in. By that time, it was just a nasty day. It wasn't necessarily raining hard. It was just raining here and there, and it was dark gray. You couldn't tell where the storm was going or coming from. You just listened for light thunder and watched for lightning, and it wasn't the most pleasant afternoon. Let's put it that way. And the water was muddied up. We did find some fish eating in the muddy water. It wasn't discolored, it was muddy. But we found some fish eating on a shoal. Could not believe it. And we swung some soft tackles there. And I don't even remember if we caught anything, so we probably didn't. But we were able to fish our way out doing that a little bit. And then finally, everybody was like, all right, David, let's go. We're done. So we had a great day in the morning, though. We caught a couple of really nice fish in the morning. See, I can remember those fish. I could take you to where the two of those fish were today, but can't remember what we had for dinner last night still. But anyway, that app, if I would have paid attention to my app then before I left, I would have known, that storm was going to catch us about a little bit after lunch. Probably would have skipped lunch, probably would have got on down. We could have hunkered down under a bridge and been okay, but I didn't pay enough attention to the app. And I've got a really good one now for our area. Let's see what it says this thing is. I can never remember what it is. Let me pull this up on my phone. It just says weather on it, and it's blue. So I'll show it to you. It's this one right here. So anyway, you get an app, learn how to use it. So once you're out there on the water, a lot of people are going to be out. So you got to kind of pick your times, just like every fisherman, angler, whatever knows. It's better to go early or stay late. A lot of times, these times of the day are a little less windy, and that's what I'm going for there. I'm not necessarily going as much for the number of people, although that can get a little hectic on some of the rivers. But less wind, you're going to be getting a little bit better presentations. They're going to be a little easier. Also, the floating thrill rides of kayaks, canoes, inner tubes, wooden rafts made of wood and gallon jugs underneath. They'll start coming sooner or later, and so that's usually about, in our case, that's about 10 o'clock is when they start hitting us, and they're done about 2. They're either finished with their float or they're sunk somewhere, one of the two. So fishing on those shoulders of that time are pretty good. Early in the morning can be good for stripping streamers, which we all kind of know that you're trying to get that last fish that maybe hasn't eaten that bigger fish that hasn't eaten during the night. Maybe he or she's still out there cruising looking for something. You're trying to get those. But also something to think about is dropping a terrestrial by the bank, because it seems a little weird to do that early in the year. How many terrestrials are out in May? Well, probably not a ton. But it's just like streamers are successful on that reaction strike. Those terrestrials can be successful on that reaction strike too. So don't be afraid to match the hatch as the bugs start popping, but don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone and try something just a little different anyway. Late evenings kind of see their own share of hatches and spent bugs, but midday when the sun's up, it's probably best if you can find a little place to tuck into out of whatever's going on around you. Maybe you find a good place in the river where there's not a ton of people. The warmer the water, the better opportunity the bugs are going to have to hatch, as a general rule. That's arguable too. If you like fly fishing and arguing, then you can argue that with somebody else. I don't like arguing it. Just like everything in fly fishing, there's no hard, fast rule that says you absolutely have to do this to be successful. You can do your own thing. and be successful. But bugs tend to like that little bit warmer water when the sun's up. In the evening, sometimes the fish tend to eat more aggressively too, so they start that feeding cycle. And I'm trying to discuss bigger fish here, but hungry fish, they eat all day, but it seems like in the evenings maybe they'll start popping up a little more. Be aware and keep your eyes peeled for fish that look like they're eating emergers during the morning and evening, because they may be eating a spent bug, they may be eating a merger, but kind of look on the water and see what you're seeing. I think I had more luck in the evening swinging soft tackles, and by all means, that's a great way to fish because the fish when they hit, they're hitting it on the run pretty much, and the bug is kind of moving, so every fish feels big at first. But anyway, try early or late or anytime, but early and late are best when you're waiting if you can get out there. Boats too, but you can get away from people in a boat a little bit easier. So, all right, next tip. I don't even know if that's 3 or 4 now. I've got the tips wrote down here. Anyway, maybe that's 3. I don't know which ones I talked about. So when you're out there, observate, or in some words, just pay attention to what's changes from the winter flows. So long periods of that high water in the winter, just about every year I can remember, the rains come in either winter or early spring, and sometime throughout that. And these rains bring high water, sometimes high water in short bursts. So it doesn't matter if you're on a tailwater or a freestone, those short bursts of large amounts of water can push rocks out of creek mouths and other stuff like old tires. You got a lot of old tires that come out of creek mouths and make their way into the river. Back in the day, quote unquote, back in the day, the farmers that have the fields would take old tires and put them up in the ditches, on the outsides of their field, trying to make the field keep from washing away. And so these big bursts that I'm talking about, they'll push a tire out every once in a while. And say, hey, that's a new tire. I know I'm in Tennessee. There's a new tire. Guess what? They're in Michigan. They're in Georgia. They're in New Hampshire. They're everywhere. They're in Colorado. New tires are everywhere. Tires are everywhere that get pushed out into the river. But when it does push those large amounts of water out, it also pushes a gravel bar out a lot of times. Now, I've seen one on one of our tailwaters that was probably the river right there where it makes kind of a little turn. It's probably 20 foot wide, maybe a little, it's probably wider than that, but let's just say it's 20 foot wide. One time it rained and it pushed that gravel bar all the way across the river to where my boat is about 6 foot wide ish, counting where you can move the oars up and in a little bit and get through there. And it pushed that gravel bar out and changed that from a 20-foot way a place to get through that corner to about a 6 foot place to get through that corner. And now it's starting to kind of widen back out a little bit because we haven't had a lot of rain. But those gravel bars will start shifting. That's my point. I knew you thought I'd never get there. Uh, but those gravel bars will start shifting, and those shoals will start pushing out and pushing back, and those softer bottoms, rocks and sand, stuff like that, will start moving around. You're not going to move the big rocks as much, although they will move, but they're not going to move around quite as much. And somebody's thinking, well, in the tailwaters, that won't happen because we run water. But if the dam's off and that big rain comes and pushes out of that creek, yeah, it'll do it, because I've seen that, and that's where I'm talking about that 20 foot opening to a 6 foot little place to get through. That push of water out the creek at a high rate will move, especially gravel bars, quite a bit. Sometimes, many times, the water shoal at the mouth of the creek will just get out of control. Those rain events can also push logs and sometimes old, like I said, old tires, just all kinds of stuff into the bottom. So as you get out in spring, you need to be aware of the areas that have those softer bottoms, because those will move around some. And what that does is that'll start pushing current around. It'll go, you have a little bit of a push out somewhere. It'll push that current to a different part of the river, and it'll make a couple things. One, it'll make a great feeding lane a lot of times. They're easier to find. Let's put it that way. Easier to find. you can find those feeding lines. But also what we don't really look for is those resting places where fish can rest next to the feeding lane, and they'll push the gravel around, they'll push the rocks and the sand around. And the next thing you know, there's a great feeding lane here, but also there's a great resting place here. And you might go for that feeding lane. Believe me, been there, done that. Go for that feeding lane and miss that resting fish, which a lot of times is going to be a little bit better fish, especially if you're fishing streamers or, like I said, try to get a reaction strike. If you can put it on their head, a lot of times, that can do it. But so you got to be kind. You just got to pay attention. Like I said, you got to observate. That's a new word. You got to observate about what's going on there. So again, makes new feeding lanes, moves the river around. Be careful. Pushes logs. Blowdowns get pushed in and out of the river. We had a log that a friend of mine took a chainsaw to and cut a table out. It was kind of up on two trees, and he cut that out, and he would do his lunches there and then serve them on his table. Really, it was a great idea. Howard who it was. And last year, that log, just after spring, it was gone, and I know nobody came and got it. Well, our friend Pat was fishing downstream about 3.5, 4 miles and took a picture of that log. The water had picked it up and got over it out of the banks a little bit more, picked it up, put it in the river, and then just pushed it on downstream. It was just below the takeout. So big logs and big blowdowns are moving. I've got another story that I won't tell you this time, but I had been looking for a log that had been in a corner for probably 6 or 8 years, and it was gone one spring, and I didn't know where it went to. Well, it went to a deep hole that was just downriver, maybe about half a mile downriver, and it had sunk so much that I didn't even know it was there till we got a big fish on. So anyway, yeah. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Call me a liar, call me a writer. Believe me or not. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Sign up for our newsletter. Like I said, it's on the app that you listen to these podcasts on. Just scroll down in the show notes, click the link, stick in your info, which is I think it's just 2 things. Hit the send, and it'll come right to us, and we'll crank you up on the newsletter. Hit the like, click the follow. You just listen to 3 tips or more on for spring fishing on Southeastern Fly. See you next time.